Where are you? What's happened? You must be outside, lying on the ground. There are broken pieces of wood under your palms. Fire! There's fire burning around you. You can smell and taste the smoke, but you're below it. The smoke billows past your back. It's the almshouse. It's burning. Those things must have got inside. You had to smash your way through the barricade to escape. That means Gerardus lit the oils on fire. That means they've gone out the back door and must be escaping into the woods. Hopefully. You must get up. No, crawl under the smoke. You may be blind, but you have walked every inch of these grounds. You know them like the back of your hand. Get past the smoke and make for the cemetery. Listen, they're out there. The undead. Victims of the plague, dying a horrible death and coming back as creatures of darkness and mayhem. Grab your walking stick. Listen to their footsteps on the ground. They drag their feet, not like the living. Swing wide and aim for the head. Push them back if you have to. Survive, like you always have. No one is coming for you. You must save yourselves and reach the others. Agnes, Gerardus, Vasco, and whoever else is still alive. The only way to stay alive is to stay together. Adapt, overcome, survive. The dead have risen. They have no idea who they're messing with.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight for a game of Survival of the Able. This is a game about disabled people fleeing an almshouse in medieval Europe during a zombie apocalypse. Before we jump in, I want to thank everybody who's shown up and donated to the two fantastic charities that Everyone Games is supporting this year. We have Stack Up, which is a charity from the United States, and they help work with disabled veterans. And we have Everyone Can from the United Kingdom, who help work with all sorts of people with disabilities in video games and role-playing games. So thank you to everybody again who has donated so far, and we appreciate your continued support throughout the evening and into tomorrow. Survival of the Able, just to kind of quickly set the scene, is a game, like I said, about disabled characters fleeing a zombie apocalypse during the medieval times. We'll go over it in more detail as we kind of play tonight. I'm just going to kind of briefly have everybody introduce yourselves, starting with Andy, who's playing Marcia tonight. Andy, can you tell us just a brief bit about yourself?
Hi, my name's Andy, and I am a wheelchair user. I've been playing all sorts of different TTRPGs for several years now, and I exist nowhere on the internet, so you cannot find me.
A ghost.
Oh, yeah, and
right.
and let me, sorry about that. Marcia, she is, she used to be a groom for the French cavalry, and then during a battle was severely injured, and she's now just sort of getting back into society. She's been at the almshouse for a short period of time, starting to get to know some people and starting to learn how to live with less mobility.
And Steven, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, I'm Steven. I also don't have much of an online social media presence. I am playing Gerardus Caravello, who is a little person. Um, had difficulties finding a job because of his stature. Kind of appreciates the science, particularly medical fields, and just an all-around caring person.
Thank you. And Greg, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Greg from HTD. I'm sorry, I should probably say I'm Greg from How to Drink, the YouTube series. I have a small following on the internet. And I'm playing Cameron Gregory, who his family was traveling as merchants from Scotland when they were trapped in a blizzard. His parents died when he was pretty young. He's had frostbite in his leg and has walked with a cane ever since, and was brought to the almshouse and has lived there much of his life.
Thank you. And Alex?
I'm Alex, and I also have no social media on, so 3 out of 1. I will be playing Joanna D. Berkshire. She is blind, and she kind of grew up with her uncle for most of her life until he passed, and now she came to the almshouse. And she's very free-spirited, so she'll be very uppity, even though. But she does know quite a number of people here. She's been here for a long time, so happy to be with y'all.
Cool, happy to have you here. And Rob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Rob. I have no social media presence at all. It's really not something I'm interested in.
That's awesome.
And I'm playing Vasco Vincent, who is a Portuguese former sailor who became very ill. His illness left him senile and quite frail. He's missing almost all of his teeth, etc.
Oops. Pardon me. Thank you all so much for showing up and playing with us tonight. Just a couple of really quick housekeeping rules. This game does use the X card, so if at any point the game ventures into territory that just you're really not comfortable with, you can say something like X card, and no questions asked. We'll stop the scene right there, and we will move along. I do try to keep it a little bit on the lighter side of horror, so I try not to get too bloody and gory, but do let me know if there's anything that you want me to skip past. The other thing is that we are playing as characters who have disabilities, and whether you have one yourself or not, that's something that people often find kind of a tricky subject to talk about and portray. And I want everybody to know right ahead of time that we're not making judgment calls on any of you or your personalities or what you do. We're here to display and represent disabilities in a positive way, but to still have fun, because people with disabilities have fun, right? We're not all serious all the time. I myself am legally blind, and I will be using a screen reader to kind of manage everything tonight. That's all in my headphones, so you likely won't even notice it. With that being said, does anybody have any specific questions before I give a brief overview of the game's rules and how to play?
If I may interject, I'd just like to say that I have spastic cerebral palsy and non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder, so I am myself disabled.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I said, I am in a wheelchair. I have a condition called Klippelfeil, and it results in lots of different malformations in my bones and organs. So I have severe chronic pain, and I'm a wheelchair user.
Thank you all for sharing. I think it's important for us to be able to not feel like we have to be hidden, right? But that's a completely different different topic and discussion. Tonight we're here to play and have some fun. So Survival of the Able uses an engine called the Fudge role-playing engine, which is similar in many ways to the Fate system. Every one of you has picked out a character ahead of time, and on your character sheets, there's something called the trait ladder. The trait ladder describes the results of any sort of die roll that we might end up doing, in terms of whether that's like a terrible roll, which might also be called a -3, all the way up to a fantastic roll, which might be a +5. There are adjectives and numbers on this trait ladder, and you can either say, I got a good roll, or I got a +2, and they both mean exactly the same thing. So whichever way works best for you to describe your actions and your results, feel free to say it either way. When you make a roll, and I'll ask you to roll specific ability checks here and there, you'll roll 4 fudge dice. Those are dice with 6 sides. 2 of those sides are marked as a minus, 2 are marked with a blank, and 2 are plus sides. You'll roll 4 dice, tally them up, and add that or subtract it as applicable to your trait level, and give the result. There are several different types of traits. There are your 5 senses: see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. There are different skills such as animal handling, navigation, exploration. And there are qualities, which are more like personality traits. So there's one that's pious or worldly, and these are kind of dichotomous traits. So if you are very pious, very religious, then you might not be as worldly. If you're very courageous, then you are not going to be cowardly. If you're very reckless, then you're probably not also very cautious. And so on your character sheets, you'll see that those sets of qualities are always diametrically opposed to one another. Finally, we have a trait called anxieties and assurances. And you want to spend just a moment to familiarize yourself with what those are for your specific character, because they're kind of triggers. They say when something happens, make a roll, and if you succeed, you avoid taking stress, or if you succeed, you recover stress. And stress is a type of damage. If you get too stressed out, you suffer some trauma, and it makes life a little bit more difficult for you. So having 10 stress, which is the maximum, is really bad for you. So encountering things that cause you anxiety can be particularly harmful, but doing things that recover your stress can be particularly good for your character. For example, one might be whenever you choose to take a faster but more dangerous route instead of taking the slower and easier route. Maybe you're a courageous explorer, and that sort of thing is really fun to you. Then you can make a check and possibly release some of your stress. It's really all of like the main mechanics that we'll need to understand before jumping in. I think the only other one is maybe our fate points. So you can spend fate points in a number of different ways, including to pray to a patron saint for intervention. And when you do that, they'll give you a pool of what we call blessed dice. And that is 4 dice that you can use to reroll some of your skill checks. And we'll go over what that means kind of as the game progresses. So with that kind of high-level overview in mind, does anybody have any other quick questions?
I have one.
Sure.
Possibly 2. The under skills. Okay. I'm not clear what act react is.
Yeah, for sure. So act or react is our kind of catch-all skill. You are ordinary people living in a medieval European almshouse. With the exception of maybe Marcus and Vasco, most of you have never been very far from home. And you're not really adept at sword fighting or attacking or defending, which is what that might catch in like an ordinary role-playing game. So if you are actively trying to do something, whether that's climb a rope or attack something, you'll use the act skill. It's basically representing that you're doing that without proficiency. React is similar, but it's more like trying to avoid danger.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I thought in first reading, I was like, performance? That's something like that.
Oh, then, sure.
Hand signals. What is hand signals? Is that just literally communicating with our hands?
Literally communicating with your hands.
Okay.
This game takes place in 1347 AD, which is before the advent of what we would call sign language today. So people who are hard of hearing often used like a form of home sign, and that's to represent characters who communicate with hand signals, but don't necessarily have any sort of formal language to speak of in terms of sign language.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. Anybody else have any other questions before we dive in?
I'm good.
Yeah, I think we got it. I'm sure we'll make some mistakes along the way, but that's why you're here.
Yeah, I
That's
figure we'll pick
exactly
it up
right.
on the way.
Let's just hope those mistakes don't end up having ourselves.
Yeah, ideally not. It could be fun. Who knows? There are
What?
zombies.
What's the worst that can happen? Getting eaten by a zombie?
If
Or
we
being
run,
No, that would never
zombie.
happen.
I mean, if we're doing a horror, only one of us gets to survive the zombie attack. That's how that's supposed to work, right?
Well,
Oh,
I
yeah,
might as well log off
true.
now.
That's the
Yep.
genre.
Nobody say that they are, a short timer. They've only got 2 weeks until they get to go home because you're doomed.
I was this close to retirement.
All right. So to set the scene, it is kind of late spring at St. Giles Almshouse, which is a home for and hospice for people with disabilities. Like I mentioned earlier, the year is 1347. This is set in generic medieval Europe. So whatever kind of images that invokes in your mind, if you have a question about whether that exists in the setting, certainly feel free to ask. We don't go into a lot of historic recreation, so just take that little snippet and use your imaginations, basically. At the almshouse tonight, it is about 7 o'clock p.m. And since it's late spring, it is kind of getting on toward dusk. And everybody is starting to kind of turn in for the evening. So they're winding down their religious duties for the day, maybe working in the garden or just kind of strolling the grounds. There are a lot of different things that you might do as somebody who lives at this residence. And to put that into perspective, I guess an almshouse is both a church and a sort of living quarters for people who have been sent away from the rest of society to live off of the good graces of the church so that you are not being a burden on the rest of society. So take that for what you will. As the sun is setting and it's getting late, I'd like to find out, what is everybody doing this evening? What would you be doing just before turning in for the evening? And we'll start with Marcia.
So I'm out at the stables grooming the horses. It's something that I can still do fairly well, and it's comforting to me to be able to do at least a little bit of what I considered my calling. I am hanging out with a horse I have named Pumpkin because he likes to break into people's gardens and steal their pumpkins.
Nice. And Cameron, what are you doing before bed?
I'm harvesting a basket of quince from the gardens.
Better do that quick
Okay.
before Pumpkin gets to it.
And Gerardus, how about you?
Gerardus is sitting in I guess in his bed area with a candle, reading a book of anatomy with lots of technical Latin terms, and just kind of nursing a glass of watered down wine,
All right.
all by candlelight.
Sounds like a nice way to spend your evening. Vasco, what are you up to?
Roscoe is folding and storing bedding supplies because it reminds him of sails and rigging.
Nice. And would you be kind of toward living quarters then?
Yeah, we'll say adjacent to the living quarters, like there's a cupboard or something.
Sure. And Joanna, what are you up to?
am currently taking a walk around the outside, just enjoying the air, the environment.
Nice. So, Joanna, you are strolling around the exterior of the building, and you get kind of this funny feeling. Um, since you are the one most likely to be in the vicinity, can you go ahead and make a hear check for me? So, under your senses, you look at your hear skill,
Hmm.
roll 4 fudge dice, and add them up.
Okay, I got 3 pluses and then a minus, so I'll take. I think the minus cancels as the 1 plus, so I have a
Right.
great because I have a +1 hearing.
All right. So you definitely hear this, and I think Cameron, were you the one in the garden?
I was.
All right. Can you also go ahead and make me a hear check? But this is going to be at a -1 penalty because you're a little bit more distant.
I rolled a +1. Oh no, sorry, plus. No, it's +1.
Was that including the -1 penalty?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I had 2 successes, 2 neutrals, and then I have a +0, so I have 1 success.
Perfect. All right, so Joanna, you definitely hear this, and Cameron, you hear something kind of faint. There seems to be what sounds like a pounding on wood. And Joanna, you're close enough and in the vicinity that it sounds like somebody's probably knocking at the front door.
Joanna is going to kind of start making her way towards the door, and she's like, "Hello, who's making that noise? It's late."
You don't get a response, but as you get a little bit closer, make me a smell check.
Okay. I got another great. Starting
All
off
right.
good.
Um, so whoever is knocking at the door and does not respond to you smells pretty bad. Like this person probably dragged themselves in off the street. And yeah, it really offends your senses.
My word. When was the last time you had a bath?
They don't seem to respond other than to kind of grumble and groan at you. Um, about how close would you say you have been as you were approaching this person and talking to them?
She's probably walking towards them. So I would probably say she's about 5 feet, yeah, 5 feet at this point, because she's trying to get close to them.
Mhm. Okay. As you get within about 5 feet or so, um, the stench of this person is just overwhelming, and they seem to turn toward you. Um, it's hard to get a sense, really, um, given that you can't quite see what they're up to, but you can hear their footsteps kind of coming toward you, but they're not being responsive, other than to have their attention on you.
Okay, she's gonna get a little annoyed, and she's gonna start speaking louder, saying like, "Hello,
Mhm.
can you respond?" Or and she's gonna kind of hold up her walking stick.
Okay, cool. And Cameron, you definitely at this
Yeah.
point with Joanna sounding a little bit louder and maybe a little more frantic, um, talking to somebody and not seeming to get much of a reaction out of them.
Can I ask a quick question about the geography? I assumed that I was like
Sure.
in a courtyard garden.
Yeah.
and that Joanna was walking around the outside walls, right? So I would be
Right.
inside. I would be coming from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. Okay, then
The scene can be very malleable until we actually define something. It's like
Okay.
what works in your head, and then once we define it, then
Oh,
we'll
okay, gotcha.
kind of focus in. So,
Well,
sure.
then I make my way to the front doors where somebody is knocking, and Joanna's on the other side, yelling, and I guess I kind of make my way up there with my cane, and probably yell something to the door like, "Hold your horses, I'll open it in a moment," which was the worst Scottish accent I have ever manifested in my life. And I work to unlatch what I assume is a very heavy, iron-bound medieval door, and open it. So,
Cool.
Making huge
So, Joanna-
mistakes already.
It's good. Joanna, you hear the door open, and you probably heard Cameron's voice from the other side. The person that has reached out toward you, Joanna, and seems to be trying to swat away your walking stick. So this is where that act or react skill comes in. If you can roll that for me.
All right. +1. And that would be
All right,
a fair.
Okay. So this person tries to reach out and like swat away at your walking stick, but you manage to maintain hold of it. They still have not responded to you.
At the point that she realizes they're trying to take away her walking stick, she's gonna be like, "Oi! Stop! I need this!" And she's gonna try to push them back.
I'm gonna assume I've got the door open at this point as well.
Sure.
What am I seeing?
So what you see is a very poorly dressed person who smells really terrible. His body is covered in all sorts of boils and sores and pus, and he looks vaguely familiar. Make
Okay.
an intuition roll.
Cool.
That's one of your skills.
Oh, I see. Sure, it's making intuition. So I have a +1 in intuition. Are these also linked to qualities or no? Or they can be, right?
These are not, no.
No. Oh, okay.
Qualities are rolled separately.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to remember Fate. I thought it was something like it's intuition, and then if you could figure out a reason why Pious is a part of that, but
Oh, I gotcha.
I thought that's how it worked in Fate, but I'm just going off memory. So I have I rolled a. I'm gonna try and be technical too. I rolled a good roll. I did 2 successes.
Cool. Just real quick, this game does have a lot in common with Fate, but if it's not explicitly stated in the rules, or if I don't explicitly state it, then it doesn't exist. So it's not like a Fate core clone or anything.
No, I wasn't questioning you. I was just my memory was.
No, yeah. I'm just like, for anybody listening, basically like expect things to run a little bit different, I guess. So you recognize this person as George, who, as it happens, had died last night. You very specifically remember Father Peter and Gerardus and Deacon Timothy taking this person out and burying them in the graveyard.
I have a +2 to Pious, so I fall to my knees and throw my arms up and say, "George, you returned us! It's a miracle!" And I probably start weeping uncontrollably.
I'm assuming I hear this.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Joanna goes, "What? How? He died!"
You beautiful, hideous miracle. I don't know.
Hideous.
Oh,
How far away are the
Yep.
quarters to this?
You can probably. Let's see. It's a nice night. Is your window open?
Yeah, it's probably. I assume
Sure,
it'd
you
be
can hear what's going on in the courtyard, and I think by this point, with all of the noise and ruckus, it's safe to say that Marcia is also um, able to hear what's going on from the stables.
Okay, well then I think at this point, like when Gerardus hears it's a miracle, he will kind of close his book and slowly set it down. Can he see the courtyard through the window, or would he
No, I
have
think
to
you
go
need to go
outside?
like through the building and outside.
Okay, well he'll just start making his way through the building.
Okay. And you'll end up walking kind of by Vasco on your way. Vasco, I think from your vantage, it would be difficult to know any of this that's going on. But you do happen to know that once Gerardus is like in his room and door closed for the night and he's in his study, he gets very focused on his reading. So for something to get him out of bed at this hour might be a little unusual for him.
Also, he will have grabbed kind of a crude homemade plague mask on his way out.
Okay.
Which,
Vasco
for
isn't,
those who don't know, is kind of like a bird beak thing, bird beakish sort of thing.
Vasco is intensely distracted by the sight of him leaving the room, and forgets entirely what his task was, and proceeds slowly shambling behind him to attempt to catch up to him, thinking he'll stop eventually and then he'll catch up.
And
All
Marcia, she still thinks of herself a little bit as part of the cavalry, and so despite not being able to move particularly quickly, she finds herself a good poking at things stick and starts to work her way up towards the front doors, preparing to take on all comers.
All right. So back kind of in with Joanna and Cameron. Joanna, George is still trying to kind of get that walking stick away from you, but at the same time, he's pushing closer and closer, trying to get in. And it looks like he's trying to grab at you very forcefully. So if you can go ahead and make another react roll.
Trying to take my stick away. Would you help me, Cameron?
Yeah, I try to clap my arms around my dear friend George's shoulders and guide him into the almshouse. I try to comfort him, saying, "Your mind has been befuddled by the grave. Come with me." And I don't know how that's going to go for me.
Probably not very well, but go ahead and make an act react roll to like get your arm around.
Yeah, sure.
Well, he's
Good dice. These are good dice. Oh no, that's terrible. I have an act reactive -2, so I did an average. I got 0.
okay. And Jordan, what did you get?
Good. I got +2.
+2. Okay. So George is really trying to push at you, and you keep him at bay. Your walking stick has proven to be quite effective against just like keeping him off of you. Cameron seems to try to be grabbing out for George, but not very effectively. And Marcia and Gerardus, you both kind of arrive with just enough of a time to like glimpse whatever is happening out here in the courtyard. There's somebody who looks to be in really like kind of bad peasant-y conditions, and some kind of struggle with Johanna, and not entirely sure what Cameron's up to.
So, okay, upon seeing that, I assume I'll kind of know who it is, because like if I just buried them
Yeah,
in
you
the
instantly
night, then I
recognize
would
him.
kind of
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So I'll approach the scene very cautiously with the mask over my face, and I'll talk about bad accents. I'm trying very hard not to go full. It's me, Mario.
Do it.
Do it anyway.
I'll cry out, Cameron, Joanne, back away, very, very slowly. Back away, please.
I have no notes. Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
A little hard to do when he's trying to take the thing that I need away.
It's okay. Just let the can go. I'll help you get it from him. It's getting it's getting worse.
And so
Yeah.
Marcia, like, she's on her crutches with her poking stick in one hand, moving as quickly as possible. Because her immediate reaction to any sort of struggle is to like wade right in there and start doing some jabs and some poking and some beating around the ears. And she's going to protect what is now her home.
Right. Yeah. So you get up nice and close, and you didn't really know George super well, but you do recognize that he was the one who was buried last night. And here he is standing in front of you, trying to take Joanna's walking stick from her.
He's been bedeviled. Yeah, so she doesn't care that he's a known entity. She has heard about on the battlefield people rising from the dead and coming back to slaughter their own troops. And she always thought it was myth, didn't really happen, but she's a woman of action. Even women and grooms in the French cavalry were taught to jump into the fray, and she is going to do so.
All right, so go ahead and make an act roll.
All right. Yeah. And I got 3 minuses and a negative and a +2, so that's -1, which is what, mediocre? Is that the right word?
Yeah. You kind of whap him on the head a little bit, but it doesn't seem to deter him from what he's doing.
Yeah, she's still learning how to move on the crutches. It's there's a little bit of clumsiness involved.
At this point, Gerardus is getting a little bit more excited. Please, everyone, crawling from the grave is not a normal. He's probably got the disease. He might get it if you get too close.
Wait for that.
Fosco is seeing that his dear friend Joanna is in trouble and is making a beeline straight toward her and her accoster, if that's a word, I think it is. And he feels that he's using a perceptible increase in walking speed, but that's debatable.
All right, so Vasco is moving as quickly as possible. This is a good time to test our qualities. So one of those qualities is energetic or sluggish. If you want to really push yourself, you can roll an energetic roll. And with qualities in this game, if at any time you fail a quality roll, but want to succeed anyway, and this is specifically for qualities, not for skills or other traits, you can take 1 point of stress to push yourself and succeed regardless.
Interesting.
This is to kind of show that even though we have personalities, we can do things that are outside of like our normal comfort zone.
I do have a question actually about that. Is there at any point where we can't do that? Because I'm assuming if we get too much stress, that could be and you said it's a problem.
Right.
Could that be related?
Right. It's a problem if you get 10 stress. Exactly. You cannot do that if you have a full 10 stress, and then there are other issues that come with having too much stress.
Gotcha.
I'd like to do an energetic roll to see whether Vasco can actually move more quickly toward Joanna.
Cool, go for it.
All right, that is a -1 result. It's mediocre, right? Yeah, it's mediocre.
Yeah. All right, so not good enough. Do you hobble over to her, or do you want to push yourself?
He'll just continue hobbling.
Okay. So you spend some time hobbling over to Joanna, and George seems to be like single-mindedly focused on Joanna right now. So he is going to once again try to grab it here. And Joanna, if you can make a react roll.
All right. Oh wow. Okay. That is a superb.
Whew. All right then. And he did not do well. So you managed to not only avoid him, but you have the option to either really escape for good or to give him a good whack. Like, basically, you get a free action against him.
He's going for the whack. He's
Right.
the type of woman who's like, okay, that's enough. Whack.
All right, so you wallop George over the head, and you feel like you connected really well. It seems to have maybe broken some of the bones in his face, but he doesn't seem terribly upset by it. Right around this time, other people from the almshouse start to kind of take notice, and they're filtering out. And you see just some familiar faces, but basically everybody is like too scared to jump in and do anything, especially as they see Marcia there, who's willing and like ready and willing to fight this thing off. Marcia, what are you up to?
Well, having failed to make much progress with the poking stick and watching Joanna show Marcia up has just really put a fire in her belly. Like, she's supposed to be the military woman. And so she recklessly just throws her crutches to the ground so she can put both hands on that stick and just comes in for a brutal swing to the neck.
Nice. Yeah, so why don't you make both a reckless and an act roll? If you succeed on the reckless roll, I'll give you a +1 on the act roll.
All right.
Meanwhile, from my position on my knees at George's feet, I'm wrapping my arms around his legs and trying to kiss his stinky corpse feet while tears of miraculous joy run down my face.
All right, so you kiss his feet. Yeah.
As you do in 1347, guys. As you do in 1347.
So I got a great roll on the reckless, and then I got a what's the one before that? A good roll on the act react, and since I succeeded on the other one, I had an extra.
Yeah, for sure.
In that case,
that's right.
Doing great.
Awesome. So you whack George also upside the head, and he topples backward. Gerardus, you're kind of at George's feet. Do you get out of the way of him falling over? How do you respond when Marcia charges up and whacks him really hard over the head?
Gerardus will kind of shocked in a shocked manner. I really had to verb that. Hop back and try to avoid everything, all the chaos.
All right, and I'm sorry, Cameron. I think you were the one who's actually was at George's feet. Was that right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I was just.
I'm sorry. I'm mixing up.
Well, I was.
Cameron, how do you react?
I was going for failing up here. I kind of assumed with my arms tightly wrapped around his legs, I would inadvertently trip him. That's happening above me. I don't think I even do anything. I don't, if they snap off in my hands, so be it. I don't know. I wouldn't notice, right? I'm down here just like, yeah. I'm witnessing a legit miracle. I'm transfixed. I don't know how much at the moment I'm going to be able to do much else.
Got it.
Fair enough.
Let's see here. So thankfully, from the positioning of Marcia, George tumbles over and does not topple on top of Cameron. He certainly falls to the ground and stops struggling. Cameron, this person who had risen from the grave, seems to be unconscious again, and your fellow denizens of the almshouse seem to be the culprits. How do you respond?
Oh God. I struggle to find my words, somewhat nonplussed. Fall back onto my hindquarters, my arms spread, and I think the quote would be, "And they hated him for his message," and I'm not really sure how. I think that acquiesce. I acquiesced to the situation. I'm not really sure.
Marcia rolls her eyes. She's just like, oh.
Bosco, seeing that the undead assailant is on the ground, begins to kneel and instead just falls a very short distance on top of George, and looks up and says, "I'll hold him here."
Oh, brave Vasco.
Who was laying on top of George?
Vasco is.
Vasco.
Okay, Gerardus will go up to Vasco and kind of put his hand on his shoulder and kind of push it, like slightly motion towards getting away from the fallen party, and say something to the effect, "It's okay. I'll deal with it. You move away. We need to take care of him now."
Vasco quietly asks for assistance rising.
Joanna kind of makes her way over to Vasco and goes, "Here, let me help you, honey," as she picks him up.
All right. All right. So there is the dead body of a dead body sitting at your feet or laying at your feet. What do you do now?
Is he face down or face up? You may have said earlier and my brain just erased it.
Do you have a preference? Because I didn't say.
Well, if he's face down, I think Marcia will gather her crutches and sort of roll him over, because this is unusual. Like she's seen a fair amount of death in her life. She's never seen one like this before. And so she wants to see if there's anything like obviously weird with his, countenance, or if he has any specific wounds or anything that she may be able to recognize.
Sure. Yeah, so Vasco didn't really get the heebie-jeebies because he's Vasco, but when you are rolling him over, it kind of makes your skin want to crawl. He's definitely covered in boils and pus and sores and blistering and festering wounds. He doesn't look good.
What did George die from? Do we know? Initially, first time.
Probably all of those wounds.
Okay.
What you know, I think really only Gerardus would have known this because he was with Father Peter and Deacon Timothy when they were kind of tending to George last night. Prior to George coming to them feeling ill. He had been in the nearby town of Allhaven, and he said that there were some people there who had been getting sick. Within a day and a half of him returning from Allhaven, he was dead.
Yeah, so Mercia, she takes the crutch that she poked him with and sort of rubs it in the dirt, trying to rid it of any fluids that may have come out of the body. And she says,
Gotcha.
yes, the miasma. Like she knows what she's talking about. She does not.
I struggle to my feet and lean on my cane and kind of start taking a clearer-minded stock of the situation. That's all.
All right.
Gerardus will kind of pull out a scuffy mirror and check the mouth area to see if there's breath left.
Go ahead and roll a medicine roll.
Ooh, -1. Not good.
The mirror seems to be just a little bit too scuffy to notice anything. He certainly hasn't moved since the
Actually, that would be a
momentum of his body
+1. I
falling.
didn't add adding the medicine would be a +1.
Oh, awesome. With that said, he still doesn't appear to be breathing. He has a couple more wounds, like 2 bludgeon wounds that he didn't have when you saw him last night. And you start to kind of ponder what Marcia had said about the miasma and whether that might be what had caused this. Between you and Deacon Timothy and the Father Peter, none of you really had a guess as to what this might have been, other than that, obviously, the boils and sores were part of the problem. So that could have been, as much miasma as anything that you've ever heard of.
I don't know. We need to figure out if he's dead or alive. If he is dead, we probably need to burn the body.
Why do we need to burn the body?
To get rid of the infection. If he is left, we could all get it.
Infection?
The miasma. She says, like, again, she knows what she's talking about. No idea what she's talking about.
Yes. That is good of an explanation as any.
I would like to make a lore roll to see if there is anything in Catholic dogma that I can lean on to justify in my brain that we would destroy this body so that it can't be resurrected. Because I think that would be a very big problem for a group of people, for me who lives in an abbey. I have 3 successes, so I presume that means I find in my mind some scripture that, like, oh yeah, under those conditions, that's okay, it's fine.
Now, this is where I say I am not any sort of religious expert, so I'm
He's
just going to go
already
with what works for
buried.
the game.
He's already been buried once, so I think it's covered.
You need all your
ashes to-
bones. You need
from
all
ashes
your
to
bones
ashes and
for the
dust to
second coming.
dust.
Kind of-
That's why they used to draw and quarter you, so you couldn't, so that Jesus couldn't resurrect you later. They used to put
Oh
your
yeah,
body,
good
rip
point.
your body apart. They were very serious about that.
One is
seem to be, that does seem to be as logical an explanation as any. And in terms of what the scripture might say, that there have been rare occurrences in the past where people have died and come back.
Oh. No.
The last time that
The big
happened, it turned out much better than this. So there's not a lot of precedent to go on, I guess. in terms of whether you should or shouldn't burn the body.
I mean, pardon my historical complete ignorance, but is this before or after the bubonic plague?
That's a great question. I have to.
So 1347 happens to be the year that the bubonic plague really started taking over.
Okay,
Europe.
so there's no burning city precedents.
There is no historical precedent to go in right now. You've not heard of it.
Gotcha.
I feel like
you're living in it.
All right. I'm happy to go along with burning the body. I think with my 3 successes, I found. Oh, that's right. There was in 87. Monk Justify or something like that said that when it's a disease situation, it's okay to burn the body because God makes an exception.
Yeah.
And so I'm just leaning
Which
on
God
this,
is known for doing all the time.
Yeah, I'm leaning on this obscure piece of apocrypha. My character, Cameron knows that's probably a good idea. I need to find a way to justify that.
2 Timothy 2, 30 something.
Joanna is like kind of just listening to everyone talk, and she's like, "Okay, hold on. Can we pause for a minute?" And she looks directly. Well, sorry, she doesn't look. She references to Stephen, and she goes, "What infection? Like, what's going on?"
He came to us a few nights ago. He said his town was infected with a strange illness, and shortly thereafter he passed on himself.
So what you're saying is he died, and then whatever caused him to get sick made him get back up again? That seems unlikely. Sounds more like devil talk.
It is the devil. Or the Lord.
I'm leaning more towards devil.
Question?
It is very unusual, but there are so many things we do not understand about the human body. We don't even have germ theory yet.
I would like to go back to this. Oh, yep. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
This is late spring in Europe. Has it rained recently?
Yeah.
Okay, so has George left like visible tracks in mud because we don't have paving?
There are some spots in the ground that seem like they probably were some kind of track from the cemetery.
Okay, Vasco motions at what appears to be tracks and says, should we follow those?
Before we follow any tracks, can we go back to the fact that you said that George said there were others with this disease? Do we need to be prepared for a full frontal assault?
Why?
Perhaps a check in the perimeter would be a good idea. And I think we know where George came from. We don't really need to track his footprints back.
Hey, Bosco, can you do me a favor?
Yes, what?
Can you lead the way?
Absolutely. Wait, which way?
The direction he came from.
Does anyone know where he came from?
Well, he was dead and buried, so I assume the cemetery behind the abbey.
I will gladly help you follow whoever knows, because I don't know.
Well, I mean, Gerardus was helped to bury him, so I guess he would probably be able to lead the way quite well.
Sure. So are the 5 of you heading off toward the cemetery?
I believe so.
Yeah, Mercy's not super happy about this plan. She'd rather be like setting up fortifications for the people with the illness to come back to the abbey, but you know, she's not going to let her fellows go off into danger without coming with.
I'm excited. I think we might witness the sight of a great miracle. Just like all kinds of people coming out of the grave. It'd be cool.
I'm not sure that this is going to be a miracle.
By the way,
All right.
Joanna grabs onto the Bosco's sleeve.
Sure. All right. So the five of you head off toward the cemetery. You do notice once you arrive that the ground where George had been buried seems to have been torn up. I mean, obviously he's out of his grave, so that makes sense. I guess go ahead and make explore rolls or anything else that you might be doing. If you're just kind of looking around trying to get clues about what's going on, you can make an explore roll. Or just kind of look over your skill list and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to do.
Well, it appears that George has left his grave, but are there others? Cue the thunder.
Dun dun dun.
Is lore like finding out historical facts? Is that what that one is?
Yeah.
It's book learning.
It's like lore and just kind of general knowledge. Right.
Yeah, book learning.
Or it could also be like word of mouth kind of learning too.
Oh, okay.
Because most of you probably have never read a book in your life. But some kind of studying, learning, yeah.
That's true.
Fosco is sort of aimlessly looking around the graveyard with a +2 exploration.
Okay.
Joanna will be just listening. She'd be kind of like listening out, kind of be more like kind of like just listening for anything that's unusual besides her friends.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and make a list hero roll.
Fair.
Did you say fair?
Yep, fair.
Okay, cool. Anybody else?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I am going to use my +2 medieval medicine to pick up some of the mud from the grave, get a good nosing on it, smell it really good, and then yeah, I won't go that far. I'm going to leave it alone for there, but that's okay. Just see if I can smell any miasma on that dirt. Yeah. Just smelling for miasmas.
Great idea.
We had some chickens. I would read its entrails. Okay, so I rolled actually a +3 for my medieval medicine detecting of earth smellings.
Nice. And Marcia, you said you had something?
Yeah, so Marcia is just gonna be sort of poking up the dirt, just sort of aimlessly poking to see if there's anything that becomes obvious, talismans or anything that may come out of the ground. But she's easily distractible, and I did already roll for explore, and I did quite poorly. And so she hears a fox in the distance, and is distracted by that and the potential that it's actually a woman being murdered, but it's actually just.
They do sound like bad foxes.
There...
I have a bunch around me.
Crazy.
They're terrifying.
Yeah.
They can also sound like babies crying and talking. It's
yeah. And is there anybody I have not yet heard from?
Gerardus will kind of be tamping the ground around, like the grave sites around George's, to see if there's any more loose dirt.
Okay. All right. So, Joanna, what you hear is the sound of probably fox feet running very quickly. And before you have a chance to react, in fact, it's running quite quickly. It kind of zooms past you and over toward Marcia, who is like at the side of the grave, looking around. And Marcia, before you even know what's on top of you, this fox tries to bite at your leg, and thankfully,
Oh my god! I only got one leg.
it misses.
Did it go for the missing leg? Is that why it missed?
That's why it missed. Yep, that's
It
why
just
it
went
missed.
straight
It
through.
bit some thin air.
All right, cool.
And then the other folks who were there suddenly notice with your medicine rolls and such, this fox that came out of nowhere. Boy, it looks pretty hideous compared to like the normal charismatic fox.
Like diseased hideous or just
Like
angry
diseased hideous, yeah.
Like
Its hair is mottled and molting, and yeah.
How far is Marcia from us?
Probably like 5-10 feet.
Oh, I'm moving it towards that fox as fast as I can. I hate foxes.
Okay.
The devil sends them to eat the chickens. So we just I kill foxes on sight all the time. That's this character's deal. He does not like foxes.
Gerardus will run and try to kind of guide her away from the clearly diseased creature.
Okay. So were you making an attack roll then?
I'd like to give it a good thwack of my shillelagh,
All right.
which I know is Irish, but you know, why would you? If you had a cane in 1347, how would it not be a shillelagh? You know, it's
Right.
Well, it could be a dueling cane.
No, shillelagh, because then you get to say shillelagh.
Yeah, that's true. That.
Right.
all right. I want to roll act, which I'm terrible at, I think. Oh yeah, -2. This is gonna be great. I rolled a 0, which is as good as I could possibly, just about as good as I could do there.
All right. Well, it seems to have been very preoccupied with what it was doing, and you managed to whack it right upside the hindquarters. Yeah, you connected not like the best, most solid blow in the world, but you certainly gave it a good thwack. And it kind of turns its attention toward you. Marcia, are you going along with Gerardus as he kind of tries to? And forgive me if I'm wrong, Gerardus, were you trying to pull Marcia away?
Yeah, just kind of like,
Yeah.
well, not super forcefully, just kind of like guiding her, you know, like grabbing somebody by the hand and kind of pulling them in a direction.
Yeah. I'm
Marcia,
going. I'm not fighting that. I'm going to allow myself to be pulled away from the jaws of the diseased fox.
all right. And Joanna and Vasco, what are you up to?
Vasco is feeling compelled to join the fracas, but he keeps looking over at Joanna and realizing he can't because he's responsible for where she is right now.
All
On
right.
the other hand, Joanna is like, what in the world is going on? Like, what happened? Like, there's a fox. What's going on with the fox?
Anybody care to explain, or are we just whacking the thing again?
Yeah, I'm trying to respond, but also kind of quickly muttering a bunch of my fox curses, not spells, but just like, you know, I'm calling it a chicken thieving, egg stealing bastard, you know, here to bedevil my gardens. That's what's up with the fox. That's it. You know, these guys. These foxes.
Fox alone, Cameron.
You haven't stopped to take.
Very useful explanation.
Gerardus will kind of say like, it's okay, just to stay where you are. It's an enraged beast. It must have a rabies or something.
Okay, actually, hold on, real quick. This actually comes into my anxieties and assurances.
I
Actually,
forgot about all this.
All
'Cause,
right. What you got?
one of her things is whenever someone tells you to slow down or use your head first, make a fair cautious check or take one stress. So
All
I'm
right,
not
go
going to
for it.
do that.
Somebody's telling you to split in. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
so do-
sorry.
I was just gonna do I have to roll something?
No.
So I actually had run into a couple assurances earlier, but since I don't have any stress yet, I just didn't do anything. Was that the right move?
That's the right move for now. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that too. I didn't really have any stresses or
Nope.
assurances to use,
Mm-mm.
but I was kind of looking through it and like, should I even use that if I don't have stress?
Gotcha. Yeah, you're nothing really to like. You can't take negative
Right.
stress. So
I did fail that roll because I actually have a -1 for cautious. And I got no successes whatsoever, so I got a mediocre. So I'm assuming that fails, so I have now 1 stress, correct?
that is a fail. That's correct. Right.
Okay. Joanna kind of
And how does
goes,
that make you feel? Yeah.
yeah, Joanna kind of goes, don't tell me to not get involved. Friggin' Cameron's trying to hurt this poor fox. It has done nothing to him.
Oh no. She's on the fox's side. Civil War!
Well, it
It's a-
hasn't done anything to him yet, but it does attempt to bite at Cameron. And Cameron, if you can make me an act or react roll.
Yeah, absolutely. Another terrible one. And while I do that, I angrily remind Joanna that, like, I seen you're eating the eggs too. You enjoy the eggs, but not on the fox's side here.
Yes, I am.
You should imagine, by the way, that this character is essentially Badger from Wind in the Willows, but human.
Nice.
And I rolled a -2, so I believe the fox has gotten the better of me.
It sure has. So you will actually, it kind of nips at you, and you will take a scratch. And that means, are you using like the PDF or the Word file, or what are you using for your character sheet?
I'm looking. I have a notes sheet open. I'm using a PDF, but I took 2 stress. I'm
Okay.
I have put them right here.
So it's in this case, it would be a scratched wound. So under the physical wounds,
Okay.
typically you can take 2 scratches before the next scratch would become a hurt wound. Or rather, I'm sorry, I'm using language from my other game. It would be a minor wound. And then if you take 2 minor wounds, it becomes a major wound.
Oh, okay.
If you take a major wound and another major wound, it becomes a critical wound.
Okay, so
but
I
if
have
you
one.
have a major wound and you take a minor wound, it's still just the minor wound.
Okay, I was not quite understanding how that wound track work. I understand
I'm
now.
confused on that too, but
That
okay,
makes sense. So what I have is
Yeah, so you
one
fill in the
minor
bubble.
wound.
Right.
Got
Right.
it. Okay.
And if you have one of those wounds and you take another and you can't absorb more of that kind, you take the next step up.
Yeah. Okay. So in other words, I can have 2 minor wounds. My next wound would be major or severe.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Does a minor wound carry any negatives with it, or is it just like nope? Just
It does
one?
not, but once you start taking, yeah, it's just like, oh man, that hurts, but you're doing all right. Once you get the next step up, you do take a penalty on some of your actions.
It bit me, the wee scurvy armagon.
So,
what do you expect?
is this fox so far gone that animal handling would have no effect?
Oh.
It's
I
hard
thought you
to
were
tell.
asking about animal control, like
Well, yeah, no, there's that too.
the authorities.
Upon seeing the scratcher, the bite, like Gerardus is very, very upset.
Yes. It's kind of hard to tell if it's too far gone. You're welcome to give it a try if you'd like. The animal handling.
Give her a try. I mean, it's not a horse, but she does know horses, so.
Just
All
to
right.
try to make it run away, just to get it away from here.
Right, yeah, trying to scare it off. So she got a 0 on that one.
It doesn't seem to respond to whatever it is you're trying to do.
And my cat just tossed my character sheet across the room, so I'm going to go grab that. I'll be right back. It'll take me 4 seconds.
As one does.
All right, Gerardus, what were you saying? Something about the bite making you uncomfortable. How do you respond?
Oh,
to that?
he was very he's like, well, he doesn't want to approach the fox because it's like, you know, rabid and biting things, but he's very like kind of torn between running him, pulling his friend out, and you know, just being agitated and hopping around and things.
There are 2 really good ways to look at this. Your qualities. Are you more courageous or cowardly? And are you more cautious or reckless?
Trying to find that.
Under qualities.
So cautious is +1, it looks like, and reckless is -1.
Yeah, they'll always like cautious and reckless will always be opposed to one another. So if you're +1 cautious, you're -1 reckless. So that tells me that Gerardus
Oh, I'm
errs on
neither
the side of
courageous nor
caution.
cowardly. They're both
Okay.
0.
So I guess it kind of depends on how you're feeling about the situation. You do tend toward being more cautious, but on the other hand, your friend does appear to be in danger. So how do you feel like you might respond to that?
He's not really a fighter, but he's probably going to move a little bit closer and try to negotiate for him to get out of the fox's range and come back, and we can retreat together.
So Cameron, I think Gerardus is advising that we retreat. Joanna and Vasco, what are you up to?
I'm in a fox murdering rage. You know, I'm probably gonna try and get one more good thwack on this thing before I'm willing to admit defeat, because my +1 cautious, which is my strongest stat between courageous, cowardly, reckless, and cautious, tells me that if we don't kill every damn fox we see when we have a chance, there'll be no eggs for dinner. And that concerns me greatly.
One interpretation, absolutely.
So I've rolled a -3.
Perfect.
I never said I was good at killing foxes. I just think it's very important, you know.
So you seem to be very hellbent is probably not the best, most appropriate phrase, but for lack of a better word, you're very focused on making sure this fox is unable to destroy your livelihood. This might be one of those times where you could pray to one of the patron saints for a quick intervention.
Absolutely.
If you were to do so, you'd spend one of your 3 fate points.
Okay.
And that gives you a pool of 4 blessed dice. Those dice can be used to re-roll some of the negative dice that you rolled. And you have up to 4 of them. You do not have to use them all at once. If you don't use them all at once, you can bank the rest for later.
I have a
basically
-2 to act and react. I think I'm going to hold on to my fate point because I'm not going to climb back out of that hole. So, I have no
so you
business
swing and a
attacking
miss.
this fox. Sorry, what?
Swing and a miss then. Yeah, it definitely seems to be wily, for sure.
It's a fox, as they are.
And a diseased one at that.
Hey, Vasco, what are you up to?
Well, I'm imagining this graveyard as being very basic. No ornate headstones, anything like that. The church's money does not go into this piece of land. So there is no place to sort of stash Joanna where she can lean on something, possibly hide from the fox's field of view, anything like that. So Vasco is being very courageously ineffectual, with nothing good he can do with the person he's trying to protect.
Very indecisive. All right, Joanna, what do you do?
Since no one has, okay, I actually no, sorry. I think someone did say it was disease, and
Yeah.
Which then she's like, oh, it's not just a normal fox, and Cameron's just being mean. This thing is dangerous. In that case, she's going to then start moving towards the fox to go whack it.
All right. So do you let go of Vasco or do you drag him with you?
Oh, she's dragging with her.
When Vasco feels her motions, he becomes enthusiastic and goes with her at speed.
Let's go kick this
All right.
fox ass.
And Marcia falls into formation with the two of them.
Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. We're all gonna get. We gotta get out of here. We can't. We gotta treat his wound. We gotta leave.
All right. I'm assuming I need to roll an act roll.
Yep, everybody who's attacking it, make an act roll.
Okay. So, a great.
And I got a good.
Cool. Good.
The word isn't here. Vasco got a -4. Is that abysmal? Horrific? Like, what is that?
Oh, Vasco.
Yeah, the horrific sounds appropriate.
Tragic, perhaps?
Tragic.
Yeah. So Vasco, you weren't quite ready for Joanna to just like drag you along, and you trip over and fall on your face as she rushes over to assault this fox. Meanwhile, Joanna and Marcia both descend on it and start whacking it with their respective weapons, and it slumps to the ground. It seems to have fallen over not of its own accord, unlike Vasco, who has tripped and fallen, and probably can get up. So the fox, it stops struggling, I guess, is the short way to put all of that.
So Marcia looks over at Joanna and says, as always, it falls to the women to do the dirty work.
It does. Indeed it does. Oh, wait. Oh, Vasco, I am so sorry. I didn't.
No man left behind!
It warms my heart to see that I inspired you to such action.
Brutal.
I spit on the fox's body.
Vasco,
All right, just so we're clear, guys. There's the whole reason there's fox hunts. Throughout history, foxes kill on sight. I didn't just pull that out of a hat.
Yep. I have actually been on a fox hunt.
I like foxes, so I'm on the complete end of the spectrum. But Vasco, are you okay? I'm sorry.
Vasco begins to get up, and he triumphantly declares, "There will be a day when I live in a graveyard, but it's not today."
I'm sure it is, dear. And she kind of hugs him.
And now that the fox is dealt with, can we all please just get back to the house and regroup?
Yes, yes.
Fall back! And
I was very consumed with fox murdering. Did any of you notice signs of other miracles around the cemetery?
I didn't hear anything.
Oh,
I didn't say anything.
Yep, I noticed nothing.
I guess Gerardus noticed nothing either.
Should we give it one more, like a once over before we head back? Or should we just head back?
I'm not sure we should press our luck.
I think we should head back, partly because if something were to happen, it probably would have done so by now.
I'm going to I'm going to attempt to pocket the fox's body and bring it back with me, for medicinal purposes. I got to do a medicine with it later.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to try. Do I have to hide it?
At least wrap it in something, please.
Yeah, I wrap it in my cloak. I wrap it in my shirt that I'm wearing. I don't have any
Okay.
germ theory.
Yeah. It's kind of heavy. I suppose you could drag it back with you.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else like really object, like such that you will attempt to stop him from doing so?
No, Gerardus does understand the benefit of like looking over it to see if there's something that would tell us what's going on.
Okay.
But he is very cautious about it.
I'm gonna take it back. I mean, it was at the site where this miracle happened. It was in its vicinity, so I got to read its entrails, and do a medicine on it.
Now that probably won't go down very well.
There's no problems with this.
Will not end horribly.
Vasco is completely distracted. He's desperately trying to remember what he was doing before he left home.
Oh, buddy.
Speaking of home,
What did I get here?
there nothing else really sticks out here in the cemetery. So the five of you head back to the almshouse. You seem to recall that you left the front door wide open, and as you get back toward that courtyard, it is getting a little bit darker. So if somebody wants to go ahead and make a C roll.
Let's see.
Not me.
It's not very well, but
I'll try.
And now's the time to introduce what we call a scene tag. So, scene tag is something that it's just kind of a descriptor that's placed on the scene, and these can kind of come and go sometimes. But basically, because it's dark, there is a penalty to this C roll. If you roll at least one plus on a die, you have to re-roll that and take the second result.
Gerardus got a -1.
I also have a -1.
So if I re-rolled a plus and got a plus again, then it's a plus, right?
Then you lucked out. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
In that case, I got an average roll.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah. Marcia, you noticed that the body that you left here earlier is no longer there. The front door remains open.
Does it look like it's been intentionally moved, or does it look like it's gotten up and walked away?
If you want to take a moment to explore, you can certainly do that.
Yeah,
Can
I think
look
I'm
around
gonna,
for a viscera trail.
Sure.
yeah, and I'm
Also
gonna
explore
see
roll.
if I can discern anything from like footsteps or drag marks, or if somebody brought in a cart to move the body or anything like that. So that's an explorer, you said?
Yes.
All right, I got average for explore.
And we're
got a
looking for
0.
other trails. Also 0. Okay. It's kind of hard to tell. You can kind of make out some maybe tracks, maybe footsteps. You can't tell if there are more than one pair. They do seem to lead up to the almshouse.
I sort of motion at these tracks and say, let's go see what they've done with the body. Because at this point, she's assuming that somebody has come and moved the body. She has no reason to.
You do recall You do recall seeing people like watching from a distance.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a bad feeling about this.
We're not the
Perhaps
only
we should be
resident.
very, very cautious. Maybe we should look through the windows or something first.
You have a bad feeling about everything. I'm just going.
I'm with
I'm a
I'm with her. Let's
pragmatic
go.
person.
We're not the only residents of the almshouse, right?
No, there are multiple other people here. Finding enough that the door is still open. So I assume that you're heading toward the front door then?
Yeah,
Yes.
towards
Marcia and Melita, it sounds like.
yep, following the tracks. And I offer my shoulder. I can't really like support her because I've only got one leg and multiple other injuries, but I can guide us.
Joanna will follow.
You can take my arm. I'm gonna go with Marcia.
Who was the one that got bit?
With me.
Gerardus
How you
is
feeling,
poking.
bud?
Gerardus is poking at the wound.
Don't poke me. I swat.
Scratch.
I swat at your hand with my club.
We need to tend to this. We need to wrap it in something.
I put a
Vasco's
bit of hoodie on it and a bit.
Vasco's once again enthused that everyone seems to be marching somewhere, so he gladly marches along, bravely going toward whatever.
All right, so you head on into the almshouse, and with that, we're right about midway. Do we need to stop and take like a 10-minute break to refresh ourselves?
I could use one.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
10 minutes? That sounds good. All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you're feeling a little bit more refreshed. When we left off, the five of you were about to head into the almshouse. The door was open. The body that was left lying in the courtyard was not in the courtyard anymore. And things seemed to be just a little out of sorts. So I think Marcia was leading the way, and everybody else was either bravely or kind of cautiously following behind. As you enter the almshouse, the first thing that you notice is that some of the torches that would typically be lit on the walls are not. There's usually like a lamp or a torch or something kind of just lighting the hallway here, but it's much darker than you would expect it to be. With that in mind, as you enter, the hallway kind of goes off into two directions. Toward the left, you would head toward the living quarters, and toward the right, you would head more toward the kitchen and the chapel. Since Marcia is up front, I'll let you go ahead and decide which way you want to head.
Well, is there a torch, like, and does she have like flint and steel that she could use to get some more light in on the situation?
Yeah, the torch is actually still there. It just has not been lit like you would expect it to be at this hour.
So yeah, I'm gonna pull it off the sconce and try and relight it.
Sure. So you go ahead and light the torch, and now you've got a little bit of fire, and you still don't see anything else specifically in this hallway, but certainly you have a better light source now.
Do I hear anything? Are there any noises coming from either direction?
Great question. Go ahead and make a hear roll.
Okay.
And I think, Joanna, were you entering right behind?
Yeah, I was pretty much right behind her.
Okay, you can make a hear roll as well.
All right, so I got a +2 on the hear roll.
I also have a +2.
I'm directly to Joanna's right. So. Ooh, I also.
I guess that would
+2.
put me right there as well.
So you're all pretty much kind of cramming into the hallway?
Yeah, it would seem that
Is
way.
it narrow? I would assume it'd be fairly okay.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's not like super cramped or anything. Yeah, if the rest of you would like to kind of come on in and look or listen around, you can do that as well. Especially since you did take the time to like stop and light the torch. There's been enough time certainly to follow her in.
Fosco got a fair hearing result.
+2 to hearing if you missed it before, so a good hearing. I heard good.
I got a 0, so nothing.
So everybody who has a +2, you hear some noises coming down from the hallway to the right. It's hard to get a real sense of what they sound like, but they do seem to be kind of agitated. And the right hallway was toward the kitchen and chapel.
I'd have to be louder.
Would you like to go explore in that direction first to make sure they haven't been up to no good?
They could be after the eggs.
Aye. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we could starve to death real fast.
Yep.
In 1347.
All right, so you head down that hallway?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, as you head down the hallway, the sounds, of course, get louder and louder, and you can tell that they're coming from the other side of the kitchen door. You do hear two familiar voices. One of them, it's still on the side of the doorway, a little bit difficult to make out exactly what he's saying, but it sounds like probably Ronan talking to Agnes, who you all know to be deaf, so she doesn't speak, but that doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't vocalize. They seem to be, I don't know if they're arguing or yelling at one another. It's hard to tell from the side of the door.
You know, gotta bust down that door and gotta intercede. And yeah, so Marcia like bashes in the door with one of her crutches and swings it open to reveal what's going on. Yeah, I mean, we've learned nothing about Marcia. It is that she is ridiculously reckless and brazen.
All right, so you bash through the door, and Ronan and Agnes both like they kind of, well, Agnes doesn't jump. She doesn't notice you enter actually because she is deaf and her back is turned toward you. Ronan, who has been raising his voice and kind of shouting at her, kind of startles a bit, but then just continues because he's still trying to get her attention. He's trying to hand sign to her, and he's talking at the same time. Like, I had to kill him. I had to do it. I had to.
Gerardus will run in around and like help him out because he kind of knows the hand signals, so he kind of helps out telling like what's gone on so far, at least that he knows.
Okay, so Gerardus runs in. He's like, "Hey, first, I suppose you need to gather what has happened so that you can interpret."
Well, he's just telling him what he knows.
Oh, okay.
George came back from the grave, and you know, he was very ill, and he attacked us, and we had to knock him down, and then we, you know, went out to the graveyard, and we were attacked by a sick fox as well, and he's just kind of frantically like saying all this in these like hand signals, and probably missing quite a few because he's, you know, nervously trying to get everything out.
I hold the fox up when he says the fox, and I say, "I got the wee bastard too."
And Marcia sort of leans in and like points with her thumbs and smiles real happy at the dead fox, just being like, "Yeah, we conquered."
So noticing that Ronan turns his attention to you all, Agnes kind of turns around and looks surprised. She comes over to Gerardus and starts tugging on him and pointing at the floor that's kind of behind like the kitchen counter or something. And Ronan's like, "No, Agnes, I had to do it. I had to. Don't you understand?"
Gerardus will run over and look around the counter.
you see the unconscious body of Father Peter.
Does he look to have like all the boils and stuff that George had?
He looks kind of yellow and like he's probably was getting sick. He did not look to be in the same state that George had been in.
Okay, Gerardus will turn to everybody and kind of in Ronan's direction a little bit and just, all right, everyone, just come. And he's doing the hand signals too, just so that Agnes won't be left out of the loop. Everyone, just calm it down. We need to settle down, and we need to figure out what's going on here, and we just need to know everyone's story. So let's just, get it out in the open.
So Marcia, she sort of just crosses her arms and like looks everyone up and down and says, miasma.
Well, I was
She's
actually
just gonna keep saying it until it becomes true, basically.
Until it happens.
Yeah.
You say that Father Peter is yellowish. I'm going to roll medicine from what it looks like, and just to conclude, hopefully that he's very phlegmatic. He's imbalanced. His humors are out of balance, and that possibly this is all tied to being overly phlegmatic, which is what I'll now look for if I can confirm that inside of my fox.
Okay, got it.
I guess Gerardus will also kind of look it over since he's been kind of hitting the medical books as well. And
I got
a 4.
I have a 3.
Oh wow, yeah. And Gerardus, can you also give me a hand signals roll?
Yeah, sure. Hang on.
All this is happening, Joanna is just gonna kind of remain quiet and just keep an ear out because we don't know where the George went. We assume he was taken, but after hearing the fact that Father died, she's now like, okay, what's happening? And now she's really on guard at this point.
Gerardus got a 0 on his hand signals.
Okay.
So, can you give a little background on the father? Like, did we like this man?
Yeah,
okay.
Father Peter was well loved around here.
Okay.
And
I mean, we don't know he's
as the
dead yet. We just know he's on the floor.
with the +3, it's quite obvious that he is deceased, and he clearly has been. It looks like he'd been probably stabbed to death and then finished, like stabbed and then finished off. And that's why Ronan was saying, "I had to do it. I had to." He gives you his side of the story that Father Peter had been attacking them violently, which is so out of character for Father Peter. And appears to have been after some of the meat and the food in the kitchen, but in like a ridiculously ravenous way. Gerardus, you managed to convey enough to Agnes that she kind of settles down. She still seems a bit confused about what exactly has been going on and why Father Peter is dead. But she gets the sense that maybe Ronan wasn't being malicious, at least.
We're all a little confused. We need to just figure out what's going on here. Maybe we should take a look at that fox.
How far is the nearest Bible as well?
The chapel is next door. I guess it would be weird to have a chapel next to a kitchen, but I guess it's already how I set it up. So the chapel's nearby.
Hey.
Ronan, do you know what happened to the George's body from outside?
Didn't you bury him last night?
As I was saying before he came back.
Don't worry, I dealt with
it.
Father Peter has a rosary on
him? Sure, yeah, most likely.
I take it.
Okay.
And
I have not seen George since. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's fine.
Ronan says that he has not seen George since he was buried. Well, I guess it's before that because he wasn't part of that big crew, but he hasn't seen him since before he died.
I thrust the rosary into Ronan's hands and tell him to compel him to recite the Lord's Prayer if he is as a test to see if he's been possessed by the devil.
To make sure he's not
All
lying.
right, let's find out how.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if he's possessed by the devil, that's one explanation for why he killed the priest. And if he's not, then we got to keep it with, what's
Yep.
going on here.
Gotcha.
And if that always
see,
fails, there's trial by combat. So
Yeah, I'm not doing that, though. I just...
I
dunk him.
volunteer.
Dunking or something, we'll see if he floats.
See.
Well, I was thinking about how I'm pious too, but also medicine too. And I'm like, I think in this situation, he would rule out religious explanations before he moves on to, all right, what are the balances of Ronan's humors here? Maybe he's lost his mind.
Yeah, the yellow bile has been too much.
Yep.
Actually, what? Hey, Vasco.
Yes.
Do you think you can help me with something?
Sure. Always. What do you have in mind?
I want to try to find. I want to head over to the rooms with everybody else. I want to make sure that everyone else is okay.
That's a good idea. I feel there's something important to do there.
All right, bear with me just one more second here.
Maybe we should also figure out what happened to Georgia. We don't want him to, come back.
So Ronan recites the Lord's Prayer and a few Hail Marys while he's at it.
I'm going to roll pious to make sure that he didn't stumble over any words or stutter or utter any syllables backwards or anything like that.
Or say it in a raspy voice, or spew out green vomit.
6 successes. If this guy is possessed, I know it.
He seems to be on the up and up.
Oh, all right. In that case, I start feeling around for where we keep the beer, and I pour us each one.
Yeah. So
somebody here, I believe, has assurance about indulging. I think it's Vasco.
Yeah, it was wine and food, so we'll just say beer counts, right?
Yeah.
All right. And that would recover stress. Do I have any stress?
Oh, I don't know. You probably do by now. Everybody's a little stressed.
All right.
do we all have a stress at this point? That would make sense.
Let's just universally raise everybody's stress level by probably 2 points if you forgetting to dish those out.
In that case,
Okay,
I pour
I'm at
everyone a
3
beer.
stress right now.
Okay.
Wait, we're increasing our stress levels?
Yeah, I think by this point it's safe to say that everybody's earned at least 2 stress. I just
Okay.
But
am
I
a
have a
bad person who forgets to.
Doesn't that reduce my stress?
Probably.
Vasco fails to reduce his stress.
Okay.
I
Need
have
more booze.
an assurance that says whenever I help another person take it easy, I make a +3 sluggish roll, which I love. The power of sluggishness.
Right. I'd say you've done that.
Oh, I have to succeed +3 on my sluggishness.
Right.
Okay.
You need to roll a
So I have a
+3.
+1, and then okay.
Okay, while he's
fail.
looking through the stash
Okay.
of alcohol, Gerardus will also look for something a little harder in the spirits department.
Okay.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
and he'll pull out, I guess, I don't know, a bottle of scotch and walk over to crap. Which one got injured?
I was.
It was Cameron.
Oh, he'll walk up to Cameron and kind of point to the wound. We need to take care of that now.
We should put mud in it.
I'm gonna wash it out with this alcohol, and then we're gonna wrap it in something as clean as we can find.
All right,
Yeah.
if you say so.
Actually, while you treat them, I'm going to go, me and Vasco will go check on the others. And she kind of starts tugging on Vasco.
Vasco triumphantly marches in the wrong direction. She tugs harder.
While he's treating my wounds, I try to engage Ronan in conversation and ask him, so explain to me why you had to kill Father Peter.
With a drink in his hand, he's kind of relaxing a little bit. He was ravenous and not just hungry. He was literally eating raw meat, and I tried to talk to him and stop him, and then he came after me and was attacking me, and then Agnes got involved, and he was going after Agnes, and I couldn't let him hurt Agnes, and one thing led to another, and next thing I know, he was dead.
I pat him on the
Terrible.
shoulder and I say, "Every man has a right to defend himself."
I
No.
They say the devil comes hardest for the men of the cloth. I'm assuming possession again.
Why?
Remembering what was said about the honey before, Gerardus will grab a little bit of honey and kind of dab it on the wound and cut some tablecloth off and wrap the wound. And he does an average job. Decent wrapping.
It's a fairly minor wound, so yeah, you managed to dress it, and Cameron, you can remove that one wound that you took.
Oh, okay.
Joanna and Vasco, did
Thank
you say
you.
that you're going like down the hall to the other side of the building to check
Yeah,
on the
that's-
other
There
residents?
are other residents, yes. That's where Joanna wanted to go, and dragging Vasco with her.
Okay.
Adventure!
So you head back down the hallway, and Vasco, it's really dark. Joanna doesn't seem to care, but it's kind of hard for you to keep up a little bit unless Joanna is like really leading the way. Did you say that you were marching in the other direction, or was that more of like a
Oh, she corrected
I'm
him.
gonna follow along? Okay, cool. So the two of you kind of head down the hall toward the other end of the building. It's going to take a minute or so, but you get to the hallway where the residents would be, and there is like an infirmary, and there are several doors where people's rooms are. And then Vasco, you suddenly remember that you were putting away linens when Gerardus had walked by and interrupted you earlier.
And remembering that, he says, well, "I couldn't have been doing that in the dark. Clearly, the torches have been put out since we left. They wouldn't normally be out at this time of night, surely."
Hmm.
Do I hear anything abnormal?
Go ahead and make a hero roll.
A 1. So that is a fair.
You even at this hour would expect to hear more, but you don't really.
Quiet, too quiet. One of those situations.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly the feeling I was getting. Joanna at this point kind of... Yeah, okay. She kind of goes... She kind of takes her stick and kind of knock it against one of the walls and goes, "Hello? Anyone here?"
You do not hear a response.
This is concerning.
Bosco
having-
says, if they went to bed early, that would have woken them up. Should we try lighting a torch?
Would you mind?
No, I wouldn't mind. I suppose if you can listen for anything else happening while I do that, I'll see if I can see well enough in this darkness to reach the torch. And would I do an energetic roll for that?
So in this case, it is quite dark in here. You can either make a C roll and take the -1 roll penalty, meaning if you roll a plus, you need to re-roll it and take the second result. Or you can make a touch roll to try to kind of feel your way around.
I'll go for a C roll.
Okay.
And how do I re-roll a single cell in this spreadsheet?
What I do is I remember what the roll was and then re-roll them all and just like pick the first one to call my second. So like call the re-roll because I do not have it set up yet where it's that awesome.
Okay,
Does it make sense?
that does.
Okay.
So you said there's a -1 because it's dim, so it ends up with
Right.
a net of +1, which is fair.
Okay. It takes you a little bit, but you do find a torch and you're able to light it.
All right. So with the torch lit, Vasco looks around the room to see if he sees anything out of the ordinary.
You note the distinct lack of people, which you kind of already had the feeling of before. There is, as you kind of turn around, a smear, like a small blood trail along the floor, kind of near the infirmary door.
Vasco tells Joanna that there's nobody in the room, mentions the blood trail, and asks her whether we should go tell the others before we investigate.
No, I think we should investigate.
This is why we're friends.
Yep, I'm actually, and that actually does activate one of my assurances whenever you would choose to take a
Okay.
faster, more dangerous route, which I feel like is way more dangerous.
Right.
I can make a good reckless check to recover one stress. So
Go for it.
we'll do that. No. That is a hard no.
So I
All right, so
Luckily, it's on that and not on a act roll where I might get bit.
yeah.
right. What were you going to say, Marcia?
I was gonna say, I think at this point they've been gone long enough that Marcia would have finished her flagon of ale, and the curiosity is getting the better of her, and so she decides to try and follow them to see if they've discovered anything.
Unlike
So
Marcia.
you head out back in the hallway, and I think from down the hall you can tell that there like seems to be the light of a torch off toward the other end where you don't recall there being one before.
Got it. So yeah, heading towards that torch and keeping an ear out for anything suspicious.
Okay. Where do the rest of you up to? The folks who were in the kitchen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unlike Marcia, I have no intention of leaving the kitchen yet. I probably pour myself a second small beer and begin dissecting my fox. I suspect an imbalance of yellow bile based on Father Peter, whom I will not dissect because that would be sacrilege, but I'm reading that from his skin.
Gerardus will pull up a chair and kind of like stand on top of it and also observe the dissection of the fox.
Okay. So if you want to, I think we've done a +3 medicine roll on Father Peter, so you do understand that he seemed to be quite out of balance. If you can both roll a medicine roll for the fox, we'll see how things match up.
I rolled a total of 2.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I rolled a 0.
My rolls are not very good tonight either. I rolled a 1.
Okay. The fox is definitely pretty yucky, and because its anatomy is much different than you are used to, it's hard to really get a good feeling about whether it's out of balance or if it's just like fox with rabies. Really hard to know.
I lament to, I'm sorry, what is his name? Gerardus. It was a waste of time.
I'm afraid so. I'm not very read up on my animals. I'm not really I don't really want to you know do anything to the good father though.
No. It's unthinkable. Straight to hell.
Perhaps if I were a doctor I would, but I'm not a doctor. I'm just aspiring.
Very suspicious of doctors. I don't know about doctors, like surgeons who cut people up. I don't know about that. That's sounds very heretical. I'm not so.
All right. So, do you stick around in the kitchen a little bit longer, or have you kind of given up on this line of reasoning?
Is there
Well,
any window? Are there any windows in the kitchen or anything?
There's a door leading outside from like the back of the room.
I think Gerardus will probably poke his head out the door to kind of like just look outside to see if there's anything amiss out there.
Okay.
So
What were you about to say, Marcia?
Marcia has a thought that things do seem to be either we're not noticing that they're still alive and then they come back, or things are coming back from the dead. So she doesn't want this to happen again, but she also doesn't want to go back to where she was. So she cups her hands around her mouth and just shouts at the top of her lungs, "Tie up the dead guy!" Hoping that somebody hears her. She just is assuming that somebody both heard and did the thing, and then continues on towards the light.
Did you leave the kitchen door open?
I don't think she would have paid much attention to whether it was closed or not. If it swings closed on its own, then it's closed. If it wouldn't have done that, then it's still open.
All right. So the rest of you very easily hear her shouting quite loudly, "Tie up the dead guy." And that's heard all the way throughout the building because from my understanding, you're about partway down the hall already. So Joanna and Vasco hear that too, essentially.
I am not going for stealth.
There would be some good cord rope in the kitchen. I think that's a good idea. We should do that. I just want to quickly, Gerardus, did I hear you correctly that you're wearing a plague mask?
Yeah, from way in the beginning.
I've been picturing that the whole time in my head. I just want to make sure I'm correct. Okay.
Yeah.
What would you use to? What's not tying?
It's a clearly homemade plague mask too.
There's no plague mask factory. They were all homemade. So.
Yeah,
well, yeah, I guess that's true.
but this one is construction paper and masking.
Yeah.
Oh well, okay. It's an arts and crafts plague mask. That's a different matter entirely. I see. I think you're gonna have to lip sync for your life if you wear that. That's not. What would you? Is animal handling to tie knots?
I would probably just go with like act to react. It's kind of like an unskilled thing that, unless you're like Vasco or Marcia, who are probably like actually background trained in doing something like that, it's just like, how well do I put a couple of loops together? And
That's a good point. Is Vasco the sailor with us? Where did Vasco go? Which way?
he's all the way on the other end
Okay.
of the building with Joanna.
I'm no hand at knots, I tell Gerardus, so you might want to take on this one.
Bunny goes
And
around.
Ronan offers to
Yeah.
give a hand too if he can.
Well, Gerardus isn't much of a knot tire either, but he will kind of like push the door to the outside closed and kind of hop and latch it, and then go over and
Yeah,
try
he
to
didn't
help.
really notice anything.
Well, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. I'm going to go for it. I rolled a -1. A fine job.
Okay. The good news is it was not struggling against you. So you got that going for you, I guess. Ronan leans down and he gives you a hand. He's like, well, maybe you just need to pull it a little tighter. And it seems sturdy.
Okay.
There's a big clear where you're tying up the fox
No, the priest.
or the father, the priest. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I thought we were talking tying up the priest as well.
I laid that
Okay.
rosary on his chest as well. I feel like
Okay.
if he is possessed and tries to get up, that the weight of that will hold him down. Maybe.
Gerardus looks back at the well dismembered fox, and I don't think we really need to tie that one up.
Now let's chuck it out the back door. The dogs will have it.
Just to make sure you latch it back.
Sure, of course.
All right. Are you leaving the father where he's at? Or are you pushing him outside as well?
Dead bodies are very heavy, so no.
Yeah, I don't.
Literally
think
dead
Gerardus
weight.
could help.
All right, so you take care of the fox. Joanna and Vasco, you were about to enter the infirmary, I believe, when you hear Marcia coming up from down the hall. She's not being particularly stealthy, so you hear her approaching from a mile away. Do you wait for her, or are you just gonna keep on keeping on?
Vasco has got his hand on the door handle because he decided he ought to be in front since he can see to react to whatever may be on the other side of the door. And as he hears her coming, he decides that that's his cue to open the door because reinforcements are here.
All right.
The
So
cavalry.
you open the door. You open this door, you step inside, you kind of flash your torch back and forth to get a good glimpse of the room. The only thing that you see that's not just like ordinary infirmary stuff would be like a sheet appears to have been pulled off of the table and onto the floor. And whoever is probably like, there's like a operating rudimentary, I guess, operating table in the infirmary, and whoever might have been on it is not there anymore. The sheet that would have been like on the table is just like disheveled on the floor.
That blood trail, does it like lead to the sheet? Is there blood on the sheet?
It kind of leads like away from the sheet.
Okay, so there's no blood on the sheet.
There's no blood on the sheet,
Okay.
other than maybe like a little splotch at the edge where it's meeting the blood trail.
Okay.
What do you see?
I see, as you might expect, an empty room, but it seems that there's been some kind of mishap or struggle. There's a sheet on the floor, and the blood that we followed here started here, or yeah, it started here. There's a little bit on the floor, and obviously there's more as we came here. So maybe something happened in here and went back to the living quarters. And that blood trail didn't go down the hall. We didn't see it earlier, so it must go further into the living quarters.
Make an intuition roll.
Who? Me or
Vasco. Yeah. And Joanna, you can make an intuition roll too.
That's average.
He has no idea.
Okay. So Marcia, you show up, and Vasco is kind of giving Joanna the rundown of what he found. There was a little bit of a blood trail leading away from a sheet that had been, looks like probably pulled off a bed or something, and is just laying disheveled on the floor. That's all anybody sees.
Yeah, Marcia isn't a real like deductive sort. She's more of a action person than a nerd. So she's going to allow the others to do a little investigation, and she's going to look busy, but is going to be doing absolutely nothing.
Thou art a nerd.
Nerdlinger, dear sir.
Nerdlinger, yes. Be thee nerdly.
The most egg-headed of them all.
Wait. Okay. So, from the information we got was there was a struggle in this room. The blood trail doesn't lead towards the kitchen; it actually leads further into the living quarters. Did you get anything else, Fosco, that we may have missed? Because I'm not getting it.
To clarify, the blood trail kind of leads out of the infirmary, and not too far past the door, it seems to disappear. Like it just stops.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to get a sense of whether it's like toward the living quarters or somewhere else. There would be one more exit from the building beyond the living quarters. And then there would be the hallway that leads back toward the kitchen and the chapel.
Vasco turns to Joanna and says, "Perhaps we should leave from the door that goes outside from the living quarters. Maybe this continued out that door, and that's why we didn't see anything coming from the kitchen."
Fair point. Let us lead on. Though we probably should inform the others where we're going and what we found.
Vasco agrees, but quick question: with that torch we lit earlier, can we see like the entirety of the living quarters, or is that door kind of in the darkness?
I imagine you can kind of see it down toward the end of the hall, maybe a little bit outside of the realm of the bright light, but certainly it's detectable from this distance.
Okay. So Vasco's going to head back toward the kitchen with the other.
Marcia reaches out and like puts a hand on Vasco to stop him from leaving. Instead, she just leans around the corner and then goes for another holler and is just like, "We found some blood! Gonna go look around! Come help us out, you lazy bums!" Highly effective.
Does anybody like respond?
Yep. I shout something suitably curmudgeonly back and begin hobbling my way towards her voice.
Fosco turns.
Gerardus will also kind of yell something suitably in defense of his craft and hobble towards the hallway as well. Well, not hobble, just kind of walk, but yeah.
Fosco turns to Marcia and says, "You would have been excellent in a crow's nest."
She says, "I kept the boys in line in every maneuver we made." But I prefer to be from the back of a horse than the decking of a ship.
Ronan and Agnes, they indicate to Gerardus that they're going to check out the chapel and would just feel more comfortable in a holy place if they can just hang out there and not come adventure around with you folks. If that's all the same to you.
Yeah. In fact, like, people choosing not to like throw themselves into danger makes Marcia feel even braver because she's like, "Ah, yes, I must protect the weak ones."
Minutes later, we find their corpses.
Yeah. That's somebody else's job. Vasco's got that one.
All right, so for the sake of expediency, because we've got about a half an hour left, you regroup, and did you say that you were heading out the door from the living quarters?
Yep.
Okay.
And on the way out, I grab a torch, just in case I put the last one down. I don't know what happened to the first torch. I'm making sure there is a light.
You have a torch. All right. I think you and Vasco both have torches.
Ooh, excellent. Extra firepower.
So you head out the door into the night, and all is kind of eerily quiet. It is maybe 40 or 50 feet to the stables, and not the same distance to the garden where Cameron had been earlier today. Where would you like to head?
Come to think of it, who's leading the way between Fosco and Marcia?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe in lockstep. They're just sort of heading out together.
Fosco the sailor?
Yeah, Fosco's the sailor.
Yeah. Does anyone have a particular preference for where to go?
I just clap Marcia on the back and say, "I lead on."
All right, she just starts walking.
Gerardus shrugs his shoulders and follows.
Joanna just flashes onto someone and then just follows.
Yeah, we're all marching behind Marcia.
So yeah, we're gonna just walk until we hit a wall.
I feel like that would have been my problem if I was.
I was gonna say some of us might hit those walls first, faster than others.
Well, the only wall other than at the Ohms house is the wall of the stables. So you walk until you get to the stables. The doors appear to be. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is there anything that looks different than when I left it?
Yeah, the doors appear to be open and like torn from their hinges open.
He's at it again.
I sincerely hope we aren't going to have to deal with undead horses.
Do we hear horses?
Exactly what I was just thinking. Like, oh no.
And so Marcia just looks
Um,
around and she's like, no, Pumpkin gets up to this all the time. Not an issue. She is slightly worried on the inside, however. She did latch it quite firmly.
I just look somewhat disbelievingly between Marcia and the doors ripped off of their hinges and just say,
This is our
"Aye, if
babe.
you say so."
He's a determined lad.
I mean, they do have a good kick.
I must be.
So are you heading into the stables, or are you
Yeah, I'm gonna
investigating that?
I'm gonna cautiously stick a torch and then my head around the corner, like Hanna-Barbera style.
Actually, I'm going to roll intuition, I think, unless you tell me it's a
Sure.
different thing, to determine if these doors were ripped off the hinges from the inside or out.
Ooh,
Intuition sounds good.
I rolled a 1.
It seems like they were probably burst open from the inside.
In that case, I'm not worried about going inside.
yeah, it's already left.
Yeah, exactly.
You think?
Well, it's the best odds I've got.
Pumpkin has flown the coop.
As the Lord says, you've got to play the hand you're dealt. Sometimes Irish, I'm sorry.
I love in my head I have a headcanon going on that he's actually just doesn't have an accent but wants people to think he's a Greek and so keeps switching it up.
Well, that might be true. He was out of Scotland as a child, so yeah, maybe it's an affectation. He doesn't want to let go of that, but actually he has no accent.
Gerard is thinking about the black and speckled piebald. Oh, why did you name him a pumpkin?
Because he likes to steal pumpkins.
Oh, I guess that's as good as reason of any.
So you head into the barn.
Yep.
And the first thing you notice, and this is very apparent, is the body of George. It appears like it has been trampled.
Attaboy, Pumpkin, attaboy. She says.
The second thing you notice is that there is another horse in here that is laying down. Seems very lethargic, but awake. Pumpkin is not in here.
All right, so I'm going to walk up to the other horse and see if I can encourage it to stand. To see whether it's just... Yeah, just in case it's just taking a nap.
Gerardus would like to take a peek at the horse's eyes to see if they're jaundice or anything. I don't know what horses' eyes look like.
All right, that was an average roll.
Okay. It just kind of gives you a slow, blinky look and does not seem to want to budge.
Oh wow, Gerardus got a 5.
Woo. Even though it's a horse, you can tell it looks pretty sick.
But it's not acting aggressive in any way. It's just chilled out.
Correct.
All right. So in that case, Marcia is going to go into the stall with the horse and lift up its upper lip and then press a thumb to its gums to see if it's dehydrated. Take its pulse.
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Too late. Already happening.
We should probably leave the horse be and let it run if it's going to run, or...
Marcia really likes horses, way more than people, so she's going to do everything she can to make sure this animal is okay.
Back up Marcia and remind Gerardo that, hey, the last knows Harson.
All right. Do you have medicine?
That is a great question. Give me 1 second. Actually, I have a +1 in medicine. Cool.
Go ahead and roll that.
But only veterinary medicine. All right, cool. That was another average roll. I'm just sticking with the zeros. Oh, wait. Sorry, I forgot to add my other point. It was a fair roll.
Okay. And this is another one of those times. There is a patron saint of animals, and you seem to really be concerned about this horse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to say quick prayer to, I forget which one it is, but the patron saint of animals.
Yeah, let's see here.
Saint Blaze, yeah.
Yep.
Then you may choose to re-roll up to 4 of your dice.
Yeah, okay. I will re-roll 1 of my dice.
Yep.
And these are, so there, I have 4, and then I can bank the other 3, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right, that went from a minus to a neutral, so yeah, that gives me an extra point. From fair to good.
Cool. So, it does look to be ill in some way. Not hard to tell if it's like the same kind of disease or if it's just something else. But it certainly doesn't look like a healthy horse.
Are there any visible wounds on it?
Good question.
Bite
Make
mark.
either yeah. You can make a C or a touch check, and if you want to go up and investigate it, you're welcome to. But Marcia is certainly, you can check that out as well with either a C or a touch.
I'll just do a
I'm
C.
going to do a touch. No, I'm not going to do a touch check. Just remembered I am bad at the touching. All right, I'm going to do a C check just to see if I can see any visible wounds or any like distension of the abdomen, you know, all the like basic stuff.
Or sorry.
So I got a 1 on that C roll.
Okay.
All right, and I also got a 1.
So with the two of you looking it over, you do notice that its front leg appears to have some shallow bite marks.
I want to, I don't know what role this would be, but I want to check George's mouth for horsehair.
Oh, that was better than what I was
Okay.
going to do.
See, touch, explore, any one of those 3, I think would be, or medicine even. I don't think it would be too difficult to find, to like check his mouth. It's a matter of knowing whether that's like horsehair or something.
I rolled a 3 for medicine.
Yeah, it looks like George had probably bitten that horse. Like you're able to like match up the bite marks, pretty generally. And his teeth had been, several of them had been knocked out earlier by Marcia, and so the bite pattern looks pretty recognizable on the horse's leg.
So Marcia's gonna toss over a lead rope to whoever's closest to George and instruct them to tie the man up. He keeps coming back, causing mischief.
Actually, this comes down to the question. I was gonna ask Vasco if he could help me again.
Mm-hmm. What do you need?
Do you think you can see where Pumpkin went?
Maybe. I was thinking I would help tie George. You know, knots.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, do that first. That's actually smarter.
What's this barn built out of?
Timber.
And George is inside of it?
Yeah.
I ask everybody, do you think we could drag George outside?
We can. For what purpose?
Pile him up on straw and burn him.
Oh, so you're fully on board with the burning.
Yeah, now who's on board with the burning? I don't remember us suggesting that way back then.
Marcia like lifts the torch and is like, "Yeah."
Hey, the Lord has opened my eyes and shown me the way.
Joanna kind of goes, oh, hold on 1 minute. So, if I remember everything correctly, when this first happened, oh god, character name, God, I can't say the name.
Gerardo?
Gerardo.
Yes,
Gerardo.
thank you. You said that there was an infection, yes?
I mean, that's my best guess. It appears to be a spreading like one.
So, if we went off to that assumption, the three people that were the only two other people who were close to George at the time were you and the father. The father seemed to have acted exactly as George did. Yes?
It would appear so, yes. And we did not check the good father for bite wounds like we should have.
Yes, and then there are two things that we need now to consider. The horse been bitten by George and you. We should
I
check
didn't
you.
bite a horse.
No, we need to check you to see if you have anything on you, my friend.
I was Gerardo bitten?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
You submit to an inspection.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I tell him,
Medicine?
disrobe.
He looks around at all the women, one of which he knows is blind, but the other's not.
Yeah, but she's also been around soldiers for the majority of her life. She's seen some stuff.
I'm not so sure
You've
the
seen
people
one.
are
Yeah, but he's
all
still
that
uncomfortable.
Are you gonna head off around the
who
corner
were
or
the
something?
two
Yeah,
people that were left in the
he'll probably
kitchen?
head off into a stall and let the other guy was it
Cameron?
who else was helping look at the dead things?
Cameron. Me.
Yeah, he'll let Cameron check him.
Okay.
I look forward to it. Who was the two people in the kitchen?
See, I
That
think
was
I'm not the one
Agnes?
you need to worry about.
Say again?
And Ronan.
What was the first name? I couldn't hear.
Ronan is the one. Agnes
Agnes was bitten for sure.
and Ronan.
I remember when you described it, I think Agnes was bloodied, was she not?
She was being attacked by Father Peter, I think.
All right, I medicine my good friend here, and I rolled. I'm a doctor. I rolled a 5.
Nice. Yeah, Gerardo seems okay, and maybe it's due to his meticulous nature. He seems to have taken more precautions than probably Father Peter had, and at least at this point, doesn't seem to have any appearance of any sort of disease.
That's good.
So does Vasco still need to tie knots, or are we just burning George without the rope? Like, where are we?
Yeah, so certainly you can have tied him up by now. Do you want to have also built a funeral pyre?
I think there may be a few more bodies we need to burn.
Okay.
Can we leave someone behind to stoke the fire while we look for the other bodies?
Yeah,
Might need
montage.
to
of
light George as
burning
soon as possible.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So for the sake of time, because we've got another event happening right after hours, and that's about 15 minutes, we'll kind of speed run the next couple of scenes. I'm sorry to make it fly by so quickly. I
It's
know there's
all
a
right.
lot more to do.
Not
All
a
right.
problem.
So as you're building up this pile of hay and moving George's body onto it, Ronan comes bursting out of the front door of the almshouse, dragging Agnes behind him, as in like holding her hand and like, running with her. not physically dragging her and handling her cruelly. And seems to be in a very panicked state where he's shouting to run, run. It's on fire. So they're coming like frantically running out, and the last you knew, they had been headed into the chapel for safety.
Now the chapel's on
What's
fire.
on fire, my good man?
Pretty soon the whole building, I think.
Why?
Well, you see, we needed to burn him.
Oh, jeez.
Burn who?
He gives you a name, Xander. So Xander was in the
Oh,
chapel,
no!
and they thankfully I had a candelabra, and I couldn't help it. I had to defend myself. You said it was okay to defend myself.
Was Xander attacking you?
You're awfully punchy.
He did.
Me poor friend Xander. I kind of shake my shillelagh at I can't remember this guy's name. I'm sorry.
Ronan?
Ronan.
Ronan?
I tell him, hey, but that's the second defensing you've been doing today. That's a lot of defensing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite a bit of circumstances there.
God, this hurts me a little more because Xander is the one I made.
Oh no, that's right.
Oh.
Yeah, Xander was my character was I created. Hurts.
That's right. Whoops. Sorry, it's the only one whose name came to mind.
Does the building look like
Tough,
it's
he's
on
dead.
fire? Is there smoke and stuff rolling out?
Don't worry, he's only dead in this universe.
So
Yeah, you can tell that the smoke is starting to fill the air.
is it at a level that, like, you know, a bucket line would not put this out? Like, is it too far gone to?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of motion for everybody to sort of step back in case, you know, there's any sort of backdraft or explosiveness. And then I ask, was there anyone left in the building alive when you left?
Not that I've seen.
That's good enough for me.
It was just me and Agnes.
In the meantime, we should probably take a look at Agnes. Make sure she's in ship shape, as they say.
Joanna kind of just falls to her knees a bit. She's really sad.
Yeah, it's been her home the whole time.
Well, not just that, because Xander was the only one that also shared her problem.
Oh, that too.
I liked Xander. He was in the garden with me a lot, so I console Joanna.
Yeah, Marcia does not know. She's very new to this group of people, so she does not, like, she can feel sort of theoretically sad, but she doesn't have an emotional connection to these deaths yet. That's also because she's a little bit shell-shocked from her life of carnage.
Oh, it's 1347. We all are. It's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Vasco consoles Joanna and then heads toward the stables because he figures that's where we're going to have to sleep tonight.
Gerardus kind of communicates everything to Agnes and tells her that she probably should be checked out, and we'll have one of the ladies do it, and yada yada yada.
Preferably the one that can see.
Yeah. You know, I've looked at more horses than I have people, but I'll give her a shot.
I mean, yeah, but you've been in war. You've seen injuries. You know what
That I have. All right, so I
Just
assume
look
I'm
for
doing
anything that looks like.
Yeah, go ahead and roll a medicine roll. We'll skip the details of taking
Alright.
around.
that is a +3.
Agnes seems to have been, I don't know if it was there's probably scratch marks that you see on her arm. They don't seem particularly deep, and nothing is festering, but she has been scratched.
All right, so I
It also looks like when she was running from the building with Ronan, there are like some handprint bruises like on her wrist, like where he would been dragging her out with him.
got it. So I explained this to the group. She doesn't seem to have any of the signs or symptoms that we've been concerned with, but she does have a scratch mark.
We should probably try to clean it the best we can and keep an eye on her.
You have to check Ronan too, because he was the one who got apparently directly into a fight with both of these fellers.
Yeah, that's true, and you have been acting a little aggressive.
And also, we're not going to be able to sleep in the barn tonight unless you think we can move a horse.
Right.
Yeah, and the burning building is only like 40 or 50 feet away.
Oh,
it's not super far away from the conflagration that is building nearby.
We're
Plus,
fucked.
we were about to start a George fire too.
Yeah, so Marcia's actually, while they figure that out, she's taking off to try and find Pumpkin, because it would be really useful to have a healthy horse to escape if we need to.
Okay. Go ahead and make animal handling roll.
All right. All right, that is a +3. Under pressure,
So
Marcia's pretty good.
Right? You go out and you start shouting for Pumpkin, and before too terribly long, the sound of a familiar hoofbeat, a familiar cadence, comes running back toward you, and there she is, safe and sound, apparently.
Awesome. So, are we at the mad dash towards escape level yet, or do we have more to do at the Abbey?
I think the fire's going to take care of everything we probably needed to take care of. So we're probably...
Yeah, probably.
Covered.
Problem solved.
Actually, Joanna kind of pulled herself together. I did mark myself for 3 extra stress because of learning of Xander's death.
Sure, that's probably fair.
She does kind of say, we probably should try to save as much food as we can. We're probably going to need it.
As things start to fall off of the Abbey.
Right, yeah, it's burning pretty quick, but there was a garden nearby if you want to grab like a handful of vegetables. It's still pretty early season, so there's not a lot that's ripe yet, but maybe you can grab a handful of things before it becomes too difficult to stick around.
Yeah, there's probably some oat sacks around here for the horses.
It's true, we can eat the oats. But the Abbey and the almshouse, are they separate structures?
They're the same building.
They are the same building. 2, I now intend to drop to my knees and pray to Saint Jude, the saint of desperate causes, to reveal to us a way towards safety or deliverance. And 3, I'm following up on the need to investigate Ronan's body from head to toe. Unless somebody else wants to deal with Ronan while I'm beseeching the Lord for salvation.
And I mean, if the stable's attached, then that sick horse is in danger too, and we don't know if it's going to turn or not.
It's a horse.
Ooh, I think there's somebody in this party who would just disagree.
But as much as Marcia will do everything in her power to protect horses, she also understands when you gotta cut and run. And
yeah, there's not really much we can do.
They shoot horses, you know. I mean, I hate to be blunt here, but the horse is done.
Yeah. So, I think she's going to get everything ready for escape, and if there's still time, she may actually try and put the horse out of its misery before they leave. But first thing she's going to do is there's enough people that we can't just ride pumpkins, so she's going to go find a cart and bring somebody with her who's a little more able-bodied to help get the horse harnessed up and ready to go.
Joanna can help you.
All right.
And then, Cameron, can you make me an intuition roll with the aid of, I think it was St. Jude?
Oh, yes. How does that work? I re-roll things I want to re-roll?
So you can re-roll minus die, up to 4 of them.
Okay. Do I need to make a decision all at once which dice I'm re-rolling, or can I kind of pick through?
Do you have multiple negatives and you just want to kind of see how it goes?
I have 2 negatives and a neutral, and I want to stay my hand on that neutral until I see how these negatives re-roll.
Sure. That's fine. Yeah.
I rolled a 4 for intuition.
Nice. So, since we are right at time, I'm going to just go ahead and narrate kind of what happens here. As Cameron is praying for divine intervention, he gets a sense and a draw toward the north, along the road that eventually leads far north to Avignon, the holy city where the nearest cathedral is.
Mm-hmm.
Marcia manages to put the horse in the stables out of its misery, and with effort, you find a wheelbarrow to kind of help carry what you can. You grab a little bit of food and make your way out of town or out of the area along the road with Agnes and Ronan and the rest of the crew in tow. Unfortunately, because the fire was getting so big so fast, you didn't have time to inspect Ronan for wounds yet. That is something that you have to do later tonight, further down the road. But with that, sleep peacefully, knowing that, at least for now, there's nothing attacking you. You seem, for the moment, to be safe.
Like in true murder hobo fashion, we burned the church and fled in the dark of night.
Yep.
Well, technically, Ronan burned the church, so we're all free and clear.
Fair enough. We had nothing to do with that.
That's a good point. Ronan.
And it's sort of the Resident Evil trajectory. We go from a building to a town.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically.
And then it gets procedurally worse. Except we don't have to worry about one major thing.
We all know
We don't have to worry about getting nuked.
Sorry to have cut that so short. I love how a game can just keep running and running and running forever, but we do have to make way for Pepper and Stardew Valley coming up next. I hope everybody had a good time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
for those of you who are watching, please remember to donate to our charities if we can. Once again, that's Stack Up and Everyone Can. They've both been really great at working with us. And we hope to see everybody again tomorrow for more events at Everyone Games.
Yay. Great game.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is
Bye,
fun.
everyone.
Thank you.